Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel podcast. We have with us our co-host and Hall of Famer live on location. The second year in a row we've done this with Steve Flink. Just got back to his hotel. Matches did not run as late as they have been the previous nights where curfew has halted some matches. We are recording this on Monday at around 11:30 Steve's time. So we're going to hit some quick hitters here and let him go to bed because he's got plenty of tennis ahead of him this remaining week. Steve, thanks for staying up and doing this.
David, it's great to be back in London and at Wimbledon. And I arrived in time to see the Sunday matches and then again, all the matches today. It's been pretty gripping stuff. And as you know, we're now down to the quarters in both the men's and women's divisions. And I'm looking forward to this next couple of days when it's different from the old days. We always split the women's quarters and the men's quarters. Now, I think it's more appealing that they're tomorrow, 2 men's, 2 women's quarters, same thing the following day. And then we'll have Thursday women's semis, Friday men's semis, the 2 finals back to back on Saturday and Sunday over the weekend. So we've got a great 6 days ahead.
Well, again, for our people listening, we're recording this late Monday night. There's been so much tremendous tennis during the first week, and then the last 2 days have been sensational. There's a lot to hit on. I'm just going to throw, some darts on the wall, and you're going to use your expertise and tell us what you're hearing, what you're feeling down on the grounds, and what, your perspective on everything. We got to start with a guy we've talked about last episode, and it's unfortunately not Sebastian Korda, who lost very early. We thought he was going to maybe make a run. But another American, Mr. Christopher Eubanks, with a huge win today over Stefanos Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas, talk about a tough draw. I mean, right out of the chute, asked to play 5 sets, Dominic Thiem, 5 sets, Andy Murray. Little easier third round, and then goes out to Chris. Chris, that top 100 was that hurdle, Steve. We talked about it. And once he got through that mental hurdle of making that top 100, he has just been sailing. Now he's going to be, 31 or 32? What a win today.
At least he's in the quarters. Maybe he climbs into the top 30. I don't know. It looks like he's going to have an excellent chance to be seated at the Open. But, David, this rise is much swifter than he could have anticipated or we could have. And it's just spectacular that he wins the tournament coming into Wimbledon, gives him the confidence, has a tough draw. I had to play Cam Norrie, who was in the semifinals last year. He knocks him out in 4 sets in the second round, and then he wins his next one against O'Connell. And then today, he's down a set against Tsitsipas, and they go into the tiebreak in the second. That's pretty much a do or die tiebreak. He loses it. He wins it, but still loses the third. Comes back and wins it in 5 sets. And you can see that how well he's handling the pressure. It's not just his explosive fast court game, but it's the way that he's connecting with the crowds and holding his hand to his ear a la Djokovic and raising his arms the way the other top players do, and just thoroughly enjoying himself. And I think it's kept him loose, and he has to stay loose. As you know, he's that kind of a player. He's not going to rally with you the way a Korda can, or some of the other guys from the back of the court, or Tiafoe, Fritz. No, he likes to end points decisively, quickly. He goes for it, and he attacks a lot too. So this surface is ideal for Christopher Eubanks. And there he is in the quarterfinals, where he'll play Medvedev, who he's given a tough time to before.
Medvedev beat him in Miami when Chris broke the top 100.
And it was a very good match. And at that point, I don't think he could have dreamed of beating Medvedev. I think he was shocked that he pushed him as hard as he did. This time, his attitude is going to be very different. He's going to be saying to himself, I belong here. I've beaten 2. I beat the number 12 seed Norrie. I knocked off number 5 Tsitsipas. Yes, Medvedev is my toughest test, but if there's a court for me to play him on, it's grass. I mean, he pushed him hard on the hard in Miami, as you're alluding to, but here it should have even a better chance, nothing to lose. And I think that's going to be a captivating clash. That's how I'll put it. And I think close. I still give Medvedev the edge, but not by any kind of wide margin. He's going to have to return really well, and he's going to have to prevent Eubanks from smothering him at the net. And he will try to do that. He will get in a lot, and he'll force Daniel to come up with the passing shots. I can't wait for that one.
Steve, I threw out a tweet out there today. Obviously commentators, former players, they get into maybe tennis commentary after their playing career is over because that's what their schedule would allow. But Chris, it's going to be interesting. Chris has stated during his when he was doing the commentating that it has helped his game. It'll be interesting to see how many current players, whether it's during off weeks or maybe injuries where they have a couple weeks to do it, or try to get into the booth and try to see matches from a different perspective. Chris emphatically has stated his work on Tennis Channel has helped him in his game.
Yeah, no, he's talked about that a couple of times over here, and I think he really means it. And it just blows my mind in a way, thinking back on that commentary and the respect, not that he shouldn't have respect for the top players, but the way he talked about the Djokovic's and Tsitsipas's and other top players as he spoke about their tennis, as he announced their matches. And now here he is in the middle of all this and beginning to really believe in himself. And he couldn't be a more earnest, likable guy. And it doesn't seem to be going to his head at all. And he has set himself up for a magnificent summer. And he's now gonna, as we were saying, you know, he good chance he gets seated at the Open. And I mean, God, if he beat Medvedev and got to the semis, the ranking goes even higher. But he's already there. He's already in great shape, win or lose that quarter.
He is. And, you know, it was a tough first week. No one thought Chris Eubanks would be the last American male standing. On the women's side, we have Jessie Pegula, who has a great opportunity to make her first semi of a slam. She's got a good draw in her quarter. We also have Madison Keys. But let's talk about the American men. I mean, it was a tough first week. You know, Tiafoe goes out early. Tommy Paul lost a tough 5-setter. Korda, we all knew we thought he was he could make a run. Taylor Fritz, you know, since Wimbledon, Steve, when he was a whisker away from beating Rafa and making the semis, he's had a rough go at slams. And we had talked about that separately. I mean, he's since he made that run at Wimbledon last year, he lost to Brandon Holt, first round of the Open, second round in Australia, he went out, and then Alexei Popyrin, third round in Roland Garros, and now second round here. It's been tough.
Second round here after leading 2-0. Difficult schedule, in fairness to him. These guys were playing a lot of back-to-back days because of the weather, but still, he'd be the first to admit that you can't be losing to somebody from 2-0 with his ability and his top 10 capabilities. You got to close that match out. You have to close that account. He didn't do it. He's in a definite slump. Korda played Vesely, who was a tough left-hander, tricky left-hander, who's actually beaten Djokovic a few times. And yes, that was that you cut him a little slack for the style of his opponent, being a lefty on grass, dangerous on fast courts. Still a match you hope and expect Korda wins. Tiafoe got destroyed by Grigor Dimitrov. I was highly disappointed in his performance. I mean, we saw today how good Grigor is. He still gave Rune quite a battle, but Rune
Grigor played well. He played a high level today. That was a good
match. Did, but again, Rune figured him out, and Rune came back, and after losing the first, they won a couple of tie breaks, and then closed it out in 4. Francis, the fact that it wasn't more competitive, I found a bit alarming, a bit disturbing, because I think he's better than that. I think if he loses to Grigor 6-4, 4-6, 7-5, 7-6, you say, okay, it's a good match. But this was just a straight set blitz. Yeah. So, and who are we leaving out? We've talked about Fritz, we talked about Tiafoe, we talked about Korda.
Tommy Paul came back from 2 sets down, and he thought he was going to try to eke out that 5th set, but 6-2. He won, I think, 2 tiebreakers, and he almost lost in straight sets, but he got through that 3rd and 4th set.
Yeah, disappointing to make the comeback and not complete it. And yeah, he hasn't been able to quite live up to the laurels of his semifinal showing at the Australian Open. I think Tommy will come out of this. I think he's got a good attitude. He's got a great coach in Brad Stein, and I think he's the kind of guy that can learn from his losses, and he gets back on the hard courts over the summer. I think we'll see some better stuff out of him. But this was a difficult one for him, and things could have opened up if he would have pulled that match out.
Well, we got Chris Eubanks, so we're still hanging in there. Now I'm gonna just throw some darts on the wall, and you tell me how you feel. Unbelievable match, 8-8 in the 5th set final breaker, and Fokina throws an underhand serve. Wasn't even slice on it. It was like he teed that up. And Holger Rune he hit a cross court winner on it. I said to myself, okay, did he do this several other times, maybe earlier in the match, and had success with it? The answer to that was no, because I hadn't seen the whole match.
Yeah.
I look at that differently. Yes, 8-8 in the fifth set, final break. That's crazy to even think about doing that. I myself have never been in the position, so I don't know what my decision-making skills were, but I was curious to see if he had done it earlier in the match and was successful at it. I don't think he had done that earlier in the match, so it was
No, I
even
didn't
more
see.
mind-blowing.
I didn't see it all, but from the reports that I got, no, he did not. It was a brain cramp. That's all it was. I don't know why he thought. What was the point? Yes, you maybe shock the other guy and get away with it, but why not be more percentage oriented and say, I'm going to go deep down the tee. I've been going out wide. I'm going down the tee, or vice versa. Fool him with the direction of your serve, but it's too big a point. Whoever wins the point is going to be at match point. So don't do that.
Huge.
And
8-8.
and it would have been a big win for Davidovich Fokina. And instead, Runa, to his credit, came out of it. He's been playing a lot of those matches this year in the majors, going to these fifth set tiebreaks. But he took full advantage of it to then come back and beat Grigor today, to now sit in that four setter that we described. So now he ends up playing against Carlos in the quarters. And I think Carlos is going to be a little apprehensive about that one. Fellow 20-year-old, not afraid of him. Last time they were playing in the Paris-Bercy event last fall, it was Runa won the first set and was going to the tiebreak in the second, and Carlos got hurt and had to quit. But he was already in trouble before the injury. So I don't know. I don't think that's nothing automatic. Maybe Carlos a 55-45 favorite going in, but not much better than that. I think that's going to be a very competitive confrontation.
All right, next I'm going to ask you about two guys who both lost to Stefanos Tsitsipas, but in my perspective, they're both on the uptick because I thought both played very well, and that's Dominic Thiem and Andy Murray.
Yeah, they did. Listen, the problem is the team keeps having these, shall we say, impressive losses. He's had a couple of Tsitsipas now, and yet it's not taking him anywhere. I hope that he needs something big to happen for him over the summer, between now and the end of the year. Some good results over the summer. Maybe go back to the Open, where he was the surprising victor back in 2020 in that final of Rezarev, and go back to the scene of his greatest triumph and try to do something impressive there, and then close the year strong. If he doesn't, I don't know. I think he's going to be very discouraged, because you can't just keep losing great matches like that. It was a terrific performance. And then you mentioned Murray, and of course Murray then had the 2-day match himself, just as the other one was. He goes 2 days, 5 sets with Tsitsipas, and Murray almost had him.
Yeah, and I said to you, Steve, that even with 2-1 when they stopped because of curfew, I still felt it was a coin flip. I still felt 50-50 at that night.
I wouldn't have felt that way if they kept going that night. I would have gone.
Correct. I agree with that. But the fact that they stopped, I thought it was a coin flip.
No, that's always going to help the person who's down. And you were right. And but still, it came down to a crunch 4-set tiebreak, and it was 3 points all. And they had an incredible 30-shot exchange.
30-shot.
Tsitsipas got into the net on a perfect approach, did not hesitate off a decent lob from Murray, not a great lob, but it was not the easiest of overheads. He put it away confidently and then marched through the rest of that tiebreak. And then that carried him into the fifth, and he won the fifth. So I think it was a good effort from both players. Yeah, Andy shouldn't be discouraged. On the other hand, he knows he's not going to have that. The 2-time former champion here, how many more opportunities did he have to come back?
He was hoping to get seeded, Steve. He was so close, so he gonna have to play these guys in the first and second round.
It would have helped. But he might have hit somebody like this in the third round instead of the second. You never know. I'm just saying it was impressive. But again, where is Andy going to go from here? We don't know. He says he was feeling better physically coming to that match. And then he took that bad fall at the end of the first day, right before closing out the third set. And everybody was a little worried about that, but he came back. He looked physically fine the last 2 sets. So, and on that level, I'm encouraged for him. I just don't know what things portend for him in terms of facing the leading players and being able to beat them. Again, we're going to learn a lot about Andy in the next 4 months as well.
Okay, the 2 women's matches that was yesterday in the States, it was Sunday afternoon. I mean, they were both played basically simultaneously. ABC had it on the split screen. I mean, they had it, both matches were in like critical junctures at the same exact time. It was amazing to watch. And it was, Belinda Bencic against Iga Swiatek. Bencic had 2 match points at 15-40, 5-6 in the second set. Steve, she did not lose those points. Iga won those points, and champions
She
do
did.
that.
I would say this, David. My only I don't want to say disagreement. The only difference of opinion is that she was a bit timid, just a little timid. She and Iga took it to her. I felt like she was waiting for Iga to give her. It was more like, I'm playing not to miss. And there's certain players that go into that lockdown mode. Obviously, Djokovic being the prime example, and it's probably the right way for them to play. I was hoping maybe she'd go for it just a little bit more, but she certainly didn't give it away by any means. In the second match point, Iga hit a great backhand winner.
Yeah.
So look, all credit to Iga. Don't get me wrong. I still give her, I think it was more a triumph for her than a defeat for Bencic. And then she comes back and wins. And I think that could be a really, she's not going to play Svitolina in the quarters, and she might play Pegula in the semis, but I give her a very good chance to at least be in the final now. The Svitolina match will not be easy, but I give her the edge going in, clearly.
And again, I threw out a tweet, and this just isn't in tennis tournaments. This is in any sport and tournament. A lot of times, maybe when a favorite comes extremely close to losing a match and they get out of it, they feel, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, like house money, because I don't think any champion would say they're playing with house money. But there's something about still being alive in the tournament that the later rounds, they get through a little bit easier. Time will tell, obviously. We'll see that with Iga, but man, that was some match. And then we move it to Svitolina and Azarenka. My God, that was unbelievable too.
You know what, David? You say it was some match. It absolutely was. And it's on grass, where she hasn't proven herself yet. She's been far better. She's already made the transition from being initially a great clay court player to being a great clay court and hard court player. Now this is a big step on grass for her. And I think the draw, I really like that draw in terms of her making the finals from here. I don't know if she wins the final or not, but I like her chances to be in the final. And I think that I totally agree with your take on this in terms of being pushed to the brink in this case is going to do her a lot of good.
Yeah, and then talk about the second match, which was crazy good. Svitolina versus Azarenka. I mean, again, that match was unbelievable. Svitolina wins 11-9 in the third set breaker. Both players had chances. Both those matches, the Bencic Swiatek and the Svitolina Azarenka, my eyes were glued. I didn't know to turn my head to the left of my TV or to the right of the TV, because it was it was crazy.
The level was exceedingly high in both matches. I agree. You're kind of tormented on which match to watch or concentrate on. Yes, Svitolina, I mean, down 7-4 in that final set tiebreak, the super tiebreak at the end, and then at the very end she closes it out with an ace out wide in the ad court, which was a really kind of a very pleasurable way for her to conclude it. And then we didn't have a handshake. We've got the political ramifications there, and that was always going to be the case. She was not going to shake Azarenka's hand, so Azarenka kind of looked at her. I thought Azarenka actually handled it pretty well.
Yeah, she gave her a thumbs up and everything.
Very dignified. Yeah, she did. She was dignified, and that was nice. But they put on a stellar display, both players. It was one of the best strategic matches I've seen. Not that Iga and Bencic wasn't also, but this one was particularly appealing, I thought, the way they went at each other tactically. And Azarenka's always been one of the smartest players in the world of women's tennis, and Svitolina is right there with her. So I think the crowd got more than their money's worth. And this comeback of Svitolina's, I always loved the way she played, always liked her guile. And now here she is in the quarters, and we'll see. As I say, I still pick Iga, but I hope they have a great hard-fought 3-set match.
I'm a big fan of both Svitolina and Azarenka, so I was going to be happy in one case and sad in the other, because both those players, it was so good, so good. All right, so we've talked a little bit in previous episodes on the separation of, we say, Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina. They've won the last 5 majors. Will it be a 6th major? You look at these quarterfinal matches, which we're going to talk about now. It's crazy. the one person who on paper has the easiest quarterfinal is someone who's never been to a slam semi before, and that's Jessie Pegula. She should get through hers. But if you go to the top of the draw, you got Swiatek versus Svitolina. That's enticing. You said, you're liking Swiatek to the final, but just the matchup between Swiatek and Svitolina is great.
Oh, I'm not saying it's no piece of cake. I don't mean that. I just mean I favor her. I make her the clear favorite going in. It might go 3. I just feel like she will be comfortable from the baseline in that match. That's going to be more in her hands, and she's got a little bit more artillery in her game. Wow, but Svitolina, you really have to execute. Your execution has to be supremely sound, or she will get to you. She will punch holes in your game. Egan knows that, and that's why I expect. But I'm not looking at a 3-3 match. I'm just looking at a Swiatek victory, however it occurs, either tight 2 or hard fought 3.
Okay, Jessie Pegula, does she make her first semi of a slam?
Yes, I like her chances. I actually expect her to win in straight, but even if she is pushed to 3, I still like her chances. So I'm putting Jessie into the penultimate round as well.
Third one, a rematch of the Wimbledon final last year, right? Ons Jabeur versus Rybakina. That's going to be amazing. I think Ons gets through that match.
I'm tempted to go along with you, but I'm going with Rybakina in another hard-fought 3-setter because of her serve. I'm giving her the edge because of her serve. But you know what? I would be happy to be wrong. I'd be very happy for Ons Jabeur, who's one of the most beguiling players in women's tennis and very well liked by the other players. One of the more interesting games out there, too. She's so versatile, so much touch, and so much ability to attack. So if she were to win, I'd be very happy for her. I just give Rybakina on this court with that serve. I think it really, it's so rewarding to her, and it was in that final against Ons last year. So I think we're going to have this. I see the same result. Another 3-setter, another win for Rybakina.
I cannot wait to watch that match. I think it's going to be very close. Whoever wins, I think
it will.
Very, very close. I cannot wait to watch that match. Okay, the last quarter, we have the second American, Madison Keys, who was down 3-6, 1-4 to Andreeva. That girl's unbelievable. Madison gets through that match, wins, and she plays Sabalenka. We've talked about Madison a lot on these episodes. She got a huge test in this quarter, but as we always say, if Madison plays at the top of her game, she can beat anyone.
She can, and I don't put it past her, but I'm giving it to Sabalenka in 3. I still like the way she's played over the course of the year. I like the way she's played herself into form in this tournament. And I think she can win a big hitting contest here, that she will be she'll create more openings to hit winners. I just like her chances. No shock to me if Keys pulls an upset, but I'm going with Sabalenka in 3.
All right, let's flip it over to the men now. You mentioned it briefly. Carlos Alcaraz, who beat Matteo Berrettini today in a good match, faces Holger Rune, who beat Grigor Dimitrov today in a good match. Both guys played doubles in the juniors together. They are 2 young guns. You're going to be hearing about them for God knows how long. It's going to be electric, that match.
Yeah, the pair of 20-year-olds, wise beyond their years and skilled way beyond their years too. And it's going to be fascinating because Carlos has the bigger game. He has more weapons. He has more variety, I would say, more natural gifts. But boy, Rune is awfully good, and he's very smart. And he seems to be, the best thing about him is his fearlessness in terms of confronting bigger names. That's why he beat Novak Djokovic in the final of the indoor event in Paris last November. He had no business doing it, you would think, but he pulled it off, and no less 7-5 in the third after a marathon final game of the match. So he did it in the crunch against the best player in the world. So again, that's why I see him go out to play a quarterfinal against Carlos, and I say there's no reason he can't win this match. So I'm giving Carlos the edge. I'm going to go with Carlos in 5, but I think we're going to have a tremendous tussle in that quarterfinal contest that could go right down to the wire.
And you mentioned earlier Medvedev versus Eubanks. I'm going, and I hope I'm wrong with this, but I'm going Medvedev in 4 extremely tight sets, extremely tight.
Yeah, I think so. I could even see it going 5, but I'll go 7-6 in the 4 to Medvedev. But you still have you got to give me your call on Rune Alcaraz.
I mean, Alcaraz of all the surfaces, and believe me, Carlos is good on grass. I said this earlier to a friend of mine. This is probably the least favorite of his surfaces. So I give Rune a chance, but I'm gonna go Alcaraz by the skin of his teeth.
So you're also going to go 5.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Carlos in 5. Medvedev, Eubanks. I'm going Medvedev in 4. Go ahead.
Sorry. Good point about Carlos. He's still acquiring the grass court seasoning. He's still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But he's so darn gifted. And the way that he came back against Berrettini. Now, I didn't think Berrettini sustained his level that well, but Carlos started to pick the Berrettini serve. He changed his positioning on the returns. He started to. It looked like a different match the last 3 sets after the first, and he got some help from Berrettini, but so he's still impressing me in certain ways. Jerry gave him a tough 4-set match too, so it has not been easy, but he's still impressed me. On the other hand, I think this next one is by far his toughest test yet against somebody.
Toughest test on his least favorite surface, but I still think he sneaks through.
Yeah, probably. Again, yeah. I mean, we're both looking at it the same way, but I'm seeing it going down to the wire. And again, no shock to me if we get an upset there, because Rune has he's one of the most prideful players I've ever seen, and he's living up to his number 6 seeding.
Yeah. Chris, I mean, with Eubanks and Medvedev, I mean, obviously he's going to have to serve big, keep the points very short. He doesn't want to get into long baseline rallies with Daniil. Again, I hope I'm wrong, but I think Daniil wins this one 4 very tight sets.
Yeah, I think that Chris is I think we're going to see him do a fair amount of serving and volleying, particularly on the first serve. And he'll use the play that some guys, and Djokovic has done it, but a bunch of guys are learning now. You pull Daniel wide, and you come in on the serve and volley, and you angle the first volley cross court, and he leaves a lot of territory open there. And I see Eubanks doing a lot of that. And then I also see him looking for any opening he has to get in to the net in Medvedev service games too. Hitting aggressive second serve returns and getting in behind those. I think he'll take the right kinds of risks that could give him the chance to make this close.
And then you got Jannik Sinner, who I feel is kind of in the position that Jesse Pegula is on the women's side. Sinner's going to be favored big time in that court. I think Sinner gets through in straight sets.
Yes. He's lost 1 set in the tournament, and he's looked pretty good. He wasn't great in the previous round, but he's getting closer to the top of his game. Yeah, Sinner makes that semi, and then we've got Novak playing against Rublev, and he's only lost to Rublev once. It was on clay over in Serbia. Djokovic far from his best. Otherwise, he's beaten him in straight sets, including at the Australian this year. And what I think he's going to like about that matchup, I'm going to go with him in straight. It could go 4, but I'm going to say straight. But what I like about that matchup for him is he's coming off, Hurkacz, who could attack him and do some serving and volleying, and just, as great as Rublev's serve is, Hurkacz has served unbelievably well. 33
he got
aces.
Broken once the whole tournament.
The whole tournament. Novak finally broke him today. Couldn't break him last night in the first 2 sets, and squeaked those out in tie breaks and in the clutch. And then
let's talk about that a little bit, because I thought, first of all, Novak has won 14 consecutive tie breaks now. I thought, now I'm not going to say, Hurkacz should have won the first 2 sets, and then obviously today he won the 3rd set. The whole thing's different. If Hurkacz wins the first 2 sets, they stop, they play the 3rd tomorrow. The whole mindset and the whole match is different at that point. But for Hubie to be up 6-3 in the first set breaker and 5-4 in the second set breaker, and not even get a split of those first 2 sets is devastating. I thought Novak was. I thought this could have been a very, very dangerous match for Novak, and it was. Those first 2 sets could have easily gone to Hurkacz.
Yeah, well, certainly the first. I think the second is a different story, and I'll explain why. But the first set, obviously Novak dug a hole for himself. You know, they're on serve. It was pretty harrowing for him to try to read that. As he said, he seldom felt so helpless against the server as he did against Hurkacz. And this has not been the case in his prior victories over Hubie. He's been able to get the breaks here and there. Never has the guy served so devastatingly as he did in this match. But then they go to the tiebreak. Djokovic serves a double fault to go down 4-3. And then Hubie serves 2 aces, and it's 6-3. So, okay, that looks large. But the next 2 points are on Novak's serve. So, you know, he just will not give you anything in that situation. So he wins those points.
Well, he has made unforced errors now in tiebreakers now. So that crazy streak is over.
Yeah, but he wasn't going to do it at 3-6. Not with it. He was going to make him serve it out. And sure enough, he hits a chip return on the 6-5 point, and Hubie has that blunder off the forehand on the approach. And Novak ends up winning the next 2 points and a couple more Hubie errors. Okay. Fragile and missed opportunity. And yes, Novak needed some good fortune. The second set to me was a different story altogether. Novak started to create openings. He had a love 30 early. Then he's up 4-3, love 40 on Hubie's serve. Hurkacz magnificently worked his way back to deuce, serving more bombs. And then Djokovic creates a fourth breakpoint opportunity. He hits a passing shot. Hubie stabs at the volley, attempting this drop volley. The ball goes up in the air. I watched it again on tape today after watching it live in center yesterday. It was one of the most freakish points because somehow the volley falls over the net. And Djokovic, despite scampering forward pretty swiftly, his momentum carries him into the net, and he missed the shot anyway. But they looked at each other and they hugged. And then when Hubie went back to the baseline, he grinned at Djokovic again, as if to say, I was so darn lucky there. I can't believe I won that point. Well, that was going to be 5-3 Djokovic serving for the set over. Right. Instead, that kept Hubie alive. And they go into the breaker. And yes, he did have a smaller opening, still a big one, serving at 5-4.
Yeah, it was on his racket. It was 5-4.
It's on his back. Yeah, but again, Djokovic makes the solid return, and Hubie gets nervous on his backhand, and then Djokovic played a very good point at 5-all, and it ended up passing him off the backhand down the line. And then Hubie played an incredible point to get back to 6-all, and Djokovic was not going to miss, but finally did miss the backhand. And Hubie played that rally extraordinarily well, and then Djokovic still managed to get the last 2 points. I thought Djokovic outplayed him by a decent margin in the second set. Not in the first. There was this hanging in the balance. So I would say, if I'd been Hubie's coach, I would have said, well, if you had some better luck, you would at least be coming back at 1 set all today, but not 2 sets to love. And again, we don't know how Djokovic would have reacted. Even he doesn't even. Of course. He alluded to it today. He said, I was fortunate to win that first set. It's true. But then if he loses that tiebreak, his attitude is different in the second set. It's more desperate and maybe a different, who knows? I'm just saying. Who
knows? Of course. That's why I would never say, even if Hubie wins the first,
I'm just saying,
tiebreakers, no guarantee he wins the third. The whole match.
I'm just saying, to me, he outplayed him in the second set. And he may have been slightly outplayed himself in the first set. And he used his clutch playing prowess to pull it out.
Yeah, so, I thought this was a dangerous match for Novak, Steve. I thought this was damn close.
Yeah, but
he was nowhere near in danger as the Iga match. But so I'm not going to say like, oh, he was on the ropes of so close losing and now he's going to coast. I'm not saying that at all. But it'll be interesting to see Novak's matches going forward, because I thought Hubie played well, and it was really
well.
Close.
Hubie served 33 aces in those 4 sets, and to his great credit, he came back today. And I thought Djokovic was probably going to close it out in 3, and they look like we're headed for another tiebreak. And he breaks Novak at 5-6, his best return game by far. The match, the only time he broke Novak in the match. They each only broke each other once, but Djokovic, I thought, recovered well in the 4th. He didn't let that really kind of weigh on his mind, because he said in the press conference later that he thought he would have liked his chances in the 3rd set tiebreak. So it was disappointing to get broken at the end of the set like that. And he thought he maybe played that game a little cautiously, but that Hubie played it quite well. But then at 3-all in the 4th, Novak struck again after Hubie recovered from 15-40 this time to get to the ad. Djokovic finally got him on the third break point with one of his classic points where he pummeled away at Hubie's forehand. And there's no doubt, David, that there's some flaws in that forehand technique of Hurkacz, and Djokovic exploited it there and got the break. And then in his last two service games, he didn't lose a point. They were love games, and the last game he started off with two aces and really closed it out confidently. So I think he'll feel good about the way he responded in the fourth set. I agree with your point. All I'll say is this about Hubie was that he was a dangerous opponent. It took stupendous serving from him, and it was stupendous. I mean, his ability to swing
Dude,
and
to
wide.
beat Novak, it's going to take a stupendous effort from anybody. Novak is playing so well. It's going to take an amazing performance.
I'm saying in the entire rivalry, all the times I've seen these guys play, I've never seen Hurkacz serve nearly that well against him. And we're talking about a guy that's had a kind of a very disappointing year. He's had a great Wimbledon. He hadn't lost his serve coming into this match. And when Novak broke him in the fourth set, that was the first time. And his ranking has slipped out of the top 10 to being the 17 seed here. So his results have not been that good. But granted, he showed how great he can be on grass. He'd taken a set off Novak at Wimbledon before, but it was still that previous Wimbledon clash was a fairly routine 4-set match. And I just think he had a phenomenal. What impressed me the most was that he comes back today, David. They played under the roof last night. That was an indoor match, which made the atmosphere even more electric, by the way. One of the most enjoyable evenings I've ever spent in the center of court was that one because of the crowd. They were so fair to both players. But then he comes back today. It's windy. The roof is open. This was not like Rafa and Novak in 2018 semi where they kept the roof closed even though the weather was okay the next day, because the rule then seemed to be, no, we have to keep the same conditions. They didn't do that here. They opened it, and Djokovic even alluded to that too. He felt the way I felt, that maybe the wind and the elements were going to help him to have a better chance to break. And Hubie comes out and serves magnificently all the way through the third set to win that one. And finally, Djokovic gets that one break. That one critical break at 3-all in the fourth. So I think it was a phenomenal effort. I'm curious to see if this can now take Hubie back into his top 10 form, because I think he's a top 10 player because he can actually play on anything. And he's particularly good on hard courts and indoors and grass. But I want to see him now have a second half of the season that's worthy of that performance.
Very well said about the roof being closed last night and then it being open today. Just another example of how tough this sport is and how players have to constantly adjust, not only not knowing when you're going to be playing, unless you're first on, of course, but different conditions within the same match. It's
and
incredible
Djokovic,
what these athletes are doing.
And Djokovic discussed that, David, and he said it was hard for him to get his rhythm back on serve, the same rhythm that he had last night, because he was holding more easily himself last night. He was holding really easily, not with Hubie 138-mile-an-hour aces, but with well-placed serves, setting up, control of the rally and sometimes some free points on the serve. You saw him pausing a lot today to gauge the wind before he'd serve. So for Hubie to continue that kind of phenomenal serving in these conditions today amazed me. And what I think makes him a great server, David, is that obviously the 137, 138, 135, the bombs down the tee on either side, but he has that incredible wide slice in the deuce court. And you see him make it break short and wide. And so who aces Novak 33 times?
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a phenomenal performance.
Crazy. Yeah, no, that's a crazy good effort. All right. 2 questions, because I know you got to get to bed. 2 questions before we end. All right. I said earlier, Swiatek, Sabalenka, Rybakina, they've won the last 5 majors. I'll ask you, will it be a 6, or will someone like a Jesse Pegula or an Ons Jabeur, who's come so close twice, making it to finals and Grand Slams, or Madison Keys? Maybe will they break that streak? Or again, will it be the 6th major in a row that the big 3 on the women's side get through?
Well, likely the latter. I think the only one that can spoil that, the others you mentioned, I don't see it, Pegula or Keys. Listen, I like them both a lot. They're Americans. We'd be thrilled to see them pull it off. But I don't see it. The only one that could pull it off would be Jabeur. but it's a tough road because it starts with Rybakina in the quarters, and she has to keep going and then win that semi.
She'd have to beat all three. Potentially, she'd have to beat all three of
Yeah.
them, Steve.
Be Sabalenka most likely in the semis, and then Swiatek in the final. So that's not likely to me, but she's capable of it. She is of that ilk. She is, we've seen her. We saw how close she came last year to winning here and winning the U.S. Open. Lost the finals of both because she lost to Swiatek at the U.S. Open final. So Ons is she belongs in that elite group, I think. But
and what an accomplishment that would be, Steve, if she got her first slam and she had to beat all three of those quarters, semifinal.
That'd be fantastic. It would be really befitting. If you do that, then you have earned the title, and all credit to Ons. I still am going with one of the three, and I'm gonna say Rybakina. I just like her serve on this court, and I like her poise under pressure. She's so calm. She's so implacable out there, and I like her chances. But again, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be heavy betting on anybody because of the three, because they're all fully capable of taking this title. And I have to say, maybe the one I would most like to see it would be Iga, because I like the fact that she has now established herself as the preeminent player in women's tennis, and this would be a terrific follow-up to winning in Roland Garros just a few weeks ago to pull off that double, and I'd like to see it happen.
Yeah, and then on the men's side, I mean, the next time we speak, is Novak going to be what number? I can't count that high pretty much. What is it, 24?
24 now. David, it's funny. I watch him. It's interesting because TV versus live. But you see certain things when you're sitting in the arena, as I was for this match, and you watch him come out and start taking the rackets out of the bag, and you can almost, you're so aware of what he's thinking about and what he's weighing. He's just so darn professional out there, and you see him sizing. Yes, he bends to his corner. He gets upset with evenness, and we know that. He's the first to admit that he has to do that sometimes. He feels a little badly about it because he's the one responsible for success or failure out there and not them. But I just like the way he attends to every little detail. You see it with the rackets. You see him sitting in the chair. You feel him thinking. And I get that more when I'm sitting in that center court than I even do from watching him on television. That the deep and undying professionalism. And he wants this title pretty badly.
I'm sure. Well, hey, thank you for staying up doing this, Steve. You're going to have you've already seen 2 great days. You're going to see a great 6 days ahead. Go get some rest. Thank you for doing this. And the next time we speak, you most likely be back in the States, and we'll have our post slam special. So thank you again, Steve.
Yeah, well, David, I look forward to that. Hopefully we'll do that. We can do that 1 week from tonight, and I'll be back home again at that point, and we'll be looking back on the tournament. But I don't see how we can go wrong the rest of the way with the men or the women with the way these quarterfinals are set up. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible not to have an enticing ending to this tournament.
A lot of people would want to be where you are right now for the next 6 days, because it's going to be a great run.
Sure.
Steve, enjoy yourself. Get some rest, and thanks again.
Thank you, David. Enjoyed it.